welcome. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? We still have some people joining in, I see. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It is 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the US. I know we have Kim joining us from London. How you doing, Kim? I hope it's not too late for you. Good. I promise we'll make it fun. We have a few people that are going to continue joining in within the next couple of minutes. So I'm going to try to kind of burn just a few seconds with some light introductions and some housekeeping items, and then we'll get officially started very, very soon. So for those that are attending to one of these events for the first time, for those with us for the first time, I want you to know that today's event is meant to be a very fun, light, and educational event. We are going to go through some questions and answers between me and Carlos first. We have some slides and a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation to illustrate some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. But for the most part, it's going to be very, very conversational. And that means that I want to encourage you guys to please participate by asking questions. Ideally, throughout the initial part of the conversation, feel free to do so in the chat. So I am going to type in ask here. So you all see the little bubble popping up at the bottom of your screens. That is where you would basically type your questions in the meantime, and then I will get to everybody's questions and answers later. If there is something that you want to know about or need more clarification while we're speaking, I'm okay if you feel that it's worth interrupting the conversation and just unmute yourself and ask. We're always very happy to just have a lot of interaction from our guests at this event. So very much looking forward to hearing your voice and hopefully you can participate. Today's event, as you guys see, is being recorded. The idea behind it is that we will share it with you all when we are done, and you'll be able to share this with your friends and family as well later on. During this event, at the end of this event, you guys are going to see that we are going to share with you a very special offer that Quark Expeditions has put together for us, exclusive for Luxury Cruise Connections and those attending the event. But if you send this presentation to somebody and they see the presentation, they'll also be eligible to receive the $200 special offer that we are extending everybody that attended the event. Most importantly, the main reason why we want you all to attend is so that you can understand, learn, and just really get a lot of juicy information about expedition cruising, most importantly about Quark Expedition, of course. And that's it. Okay, before I forget, during the event, Denise, our lovely marketing manager, is going to be pushing some polls so that we can get to know a little bit more about those that are attending today's event, and we'll share those questions when they're relevant with everybody else. So without any further ado, what I'm going to do is there you go. Here's one. Have you ever done an expedition cruise in the past? Have you ever done an expedition cruise in the past? So please give us your answers. And I'm going to spotlight Mr. Carlos Ramirez, and I'm going to spotlight myself as well. So hopefully
that's an easy question for me.
Have you ever done an expedition cruise?
How many have you done?
How many have you done is the right question.
I've done 3 in total.
There you go. So so right now, 65% of you have responded, and I'm getting a 53 no and a 47 yes. Surprisingly high, actually. I was expecting less of you to have done an expedition cruise in the past, but that's absolutely fine. So going back to our presentation. So Carlos Ramirez, Carlos, why don't you tell us a little bit, and Carlos, I'm going to be sharing and unsharing this presentation all the time so that we can make it very dynamic. Okay, so I'm basically only going to share my screen in occasions where I feel that there's something to illustrate or something visual to share. Okay, sounds good.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So, Carlos, talk to us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do for Quark Expeditions? Take it away.
So I a little bit about my background. So I've been in the cruising industry for roughly 28 years. 20 of those were with the Royal Caribbean brands, mainly with I worked with the brands like Celebrity, Ozamar, Club Cruises. The Royal Caribbean was like my first job in the cruise industry. Then I spent about 4.5 years with the Royal Caribbean, excuse me, with the Norwegian brands at Norwegian. And then before joining Quark in early 2019. And so my background has always been traditional cruising, and like everything else in this industry and in travel, as you travel more and as you get more experience in different products, you want to learn more, you want to go beyond. And so at the time that I joined Quark Expeditions was the time where the expedition industry was growing. It's the fastest growing segment in travel right now. More expedition cruise ships are coming online by sheer percentage than any other type of ship in the industry. So I joined this particular company at the right time, right when this expedition boom is starting to take off. And so it's been an incredible adventure so far. I certainly love what I do. I love what Quark Expeditions does, and I certainly stand by what the company is and what the deliverables that we provide for all of our guests on board these ships.
Excellent. So so I'm gonna just share this real quick. This is the type of images that truly inspire me to talk about expedition cruising, right? This is kind of the type of sightseeing that I absolutely just love looking at. And so talk to us a little bit about Quark Expeditions, particularly. Why travel with Quark Expedition? What makes Quark Expedition so special?
So Quark Expeditions have been around roughly for 31 years, and we've been doing polar travel for all 31 years. We've had opportunities to grow and to expand beyond the polar regions, but we've decided to be the specialist, be the leader in polar expeditions, and to stick to our sweet spot, which is this type of travel. So the first thing you want to know about Quark is that we only do polar. We have the most experienced team in the polar regions. I've been hearing about a lot of changes with different companies, where companies have unfortunately have had to let their talent go during the pandemic. They weren't able to retain a lot of their talent. Quark was one of the very few companies that was able to keep everybody on the payroll, including our guides and leaders, as well as all of our salespeople. All of the people that answer the phone at Quark Expeditions were retained during the pandemic. So that just tells you a little bit about our financial stability. We're owned by KKR, which is the number one private equity firm in the world. And so financially strong company. We've been around for 31 years. We've kept our talent, and certainly if I had a magic formula, the guides and leaders and the people you come across it was what makes Quark special. For every 7 guests that we have on board, we have 1 guide or leader. And everybody in the industry is going to tell you that they have ornithologists, marine biologists, glaciologists, penguinologists, all these ologists on board. The only difference with Quark is that we're the only ones that have that short of a ratio. So if you're looking for small groups and you're looking to learn more from our guides, as soon as you get on that Zodiac, that guide is an expert in their science. Once you land on ground, the guides are there, and we can get as small as 1 to 7. And certainly it's about the education. It's about immersing you in nature. We certainly try to create our itineraries with innovation, and we have an innovation department that we've created around, where can we, kind of go beyond and go a little bit further, and risking that risk with reward and creating some innovative itineraries. And I'll give you an example. In 2024, we're getting ready to take some of our guests on 2 itineraries to go see the emperor penguins. And those are the rarest penguins that you're going to be able to see in the world. It's really hard to find them anywhere without either having an icebreaker, or in our particular case, we're going to get very close to Snow Hill, which is where the colony that we found back in, I believe, 2004, we found this colony. And so we're going to be flying folks on our helicopters to the area snow hill. And then from there, we're gonna trek over to the rookery of emperor penguins, which is a really rare occasion. It's rare that you're gonna see these emperors in the wild. And then certainly everything else that we do is around small ship experiences. All of our ships are under 200 passengers. And, we certainly focus, on having more off the ship adventure options or activities or excursions that you can partake in once you get on land or in the water or in the air.
Okay, good. And so just to illustrate a little bit about the polar regions, these are the polar regions. I want to highlight something very interesting. I'm sure you guys can notice the huge difference, aside from obviously the little animal next to the image, is the fact that the Arctic is basically water, while the Antarctic is basically land. So these are obviously your polar regions, the Arctic in the north, the Antarctic in the south. And so navigating Antarctica, how do you get there? Let's talk about Antarctica first. How do you get to Antarctica?
So there's for Quark expeditions, there's 3 ways of getting to Antarctica. And if you could go back one slide, these are the entry points. Basically, it's Ushuaia, Punta Arenas, Chile, or Buenos Aires, Argentina. Now you can go to the next one. So we have 2 ways of getting down to the Antarctic Peninsula. Of course, if you've ever been to Australia, there's a lot of products that sail out of Australia, and the biggest difference of getting to the Antarctica from Australia, you're talking 5 to 6 days to get to Antarctica, where the easiest place in the world is from Denise's home country, is from Argentina, sailing across from Ushuaia. So of course, going across the Drake Passage can be the Drake Lake or the Drake Shake at times. So the Drake Passage is where 2 bodies of water meet, and basically it can be as flat as this ground is right now, or it can be as rough as the roughest body of water in the world. And so we offer itineraries that range from 8 to 23 days in Antarctica. And then we have the option of sailing you down like this illustration shows here, or for those of you that are either susceptible to motion sickness, or you're looking for more of an express itinerary, about an 8-day itinerary, what we do is that we will fly you from Punta Arenas, Chile, down to King George Island. The ship will sail empty, and then you will meet the ship on the other side. We have 2 charter jets, as you can see here on the picture, that we take about 140 guests down to the peninsula, to King George Island, and then you meet the ship on the other side. The difference in the travel time is 2.5 hours on the flight versus roughly 36 hours of sailing across to go down, and then 36 hours to go back up. There's pros and cons for both. For those of you that want to get there the fastest, certainly. But there is something special about saying that you made it through the Drake Passage. There's something special about just getting up to the peninsula and sailing in and seeing these giant icebergs come in, and they start the size of cars. All of a sudden, they're the size of the ship, and as you get closer, they can be 10 stories high. So there's something special about coming up on the peninsula after crossing the Drake Passage that a lot of folks do look forward to getting that experience.
And most cruise expedition companies will not offer the fly cruise option. There are not too many that do, correct?
Yeah, I believe that there's probably total about 3 in the world that offer this, and then one of them just joined recently in the last few years. But we've been operating these fly cruise programs for 8 years, and don't get me wrong, this is just as expedition-like as the crossing, because with airplanes you have storms, you have fog, you have you can have all the types of challenges that can happen. But we've had a 97 percentile success rate of getting to the peninsula. Only 3 times in our history have we had to either delay or cancel an itinerary due to just strong storms and fog.
Expedition cruising is synonymous to adventure, which is synonymous to a whole bunch of unexpected situations, right?
That's correct. Every day is completely different. If you think that your itinerary is going to take you, let's give it an example, like going to Alaska. Alaska, you're going to have your ports that 99% of the times you're going to be rolling into these ports, and the itinerary is basically cookie cutter. Everybody's just following each other in the industry. And basically, it's just a cycle of ships following each other. And when you get to like a place like Ketchikan, you're going to be there with a close, with about 15,000 of your closest friends. When it comes to expedition cruising, from day 2, as an example, to day 9, every day is going to be completely different. And so what happens is that it's always dependent on weather, ice conditions, animal sightings that we've had in the past, some of our personal intel, because we've been only doing the polar regions. We understand what these different landings provide us. And so the good thing about being on a ship under 199 passengers is that in a place like Antarctica, whenever the season starts, like for example, for this coming season, there's a possibility of 85 landing spots. A ship under 200 passengers will allow you to go to all 85 landing spots. A ship under 200 passengers will also allow you to debark everyone at the same time. So there is no fear of missing out anything. Everybody's off the ship on some form of adventure at the same time. Where once you get above 200 passengers, you're limited to about 15 spots. Above 500, you're just driving by. You're cruising by. You're waving at the penguins from the large ship. You're not even getting close enough to, see them at your your feet.
So let's talk a little bit about those.
So that's differences between the sizes of ships. So this map here just gives you an illustration of the different itineraries that we have. And I talked about the 8 to 23 days, but we do have the itineraries that can include the Falklands, the South Georgia Island, as well as going down to the peninsula. And as far as the Antarctic Circle, we normally will go probably roughly 67 degrees south. I say that if you have the time to take one of these trips, you definitely want to include South Georgia in your itinerary. South Georgia is the place where a lot of these penguin movies have been filmed, and it's one of the largest rookeries of king penguins in the world, where you land on the beach there and it's just hundreds of thousands of penguins at all age groups, whether, during the season, you might find some that are they were just born and they have their little fur. There's some that already have their black sheen, and then some that are halfway through converting from a child to an adult penguin. So it's a pretty neat place to visit, as well as for those of you that follow history, this is the resting place for Sir Ernest Shackleton as well.
It's one of the longer itineraries when you're visiting Antarctica, but definitely worth because of South Georgia. Quick note on these itineraries, guys. One of the common questions that we get as whenever we're booking people that traditionally sail on classic cruises is why does my itinerary show like no specific protocol for this 5 days in a row? And like Carlos is saying, it's when you're down there, you can't really plan exactly where you're going to land every single day, and it's just each day is a little bit of an unexpected adventure, right?
It is, and that's the best part of these trips is that again, we're balancing risk and reward and an optimum time on land. So a typical trip on Quark expeditions, you have a wake up call around 7 to 7:30. You have breakfast as a group, and then as soon as breakfast is done, we are calling Zodiac groups to line up, or the Zodiac groups can be helicopter groups if the case is that you're booking Ultramarine where we operate our helicopters. And so what'll happen is that right after breakfast, around 9 o'clock, everybody's getting ready. We go down to our ready room. Everybody gets into their gear, and then we start debarking folks off the ship and going on some form of adventure. And then normally we'll go through the entire morning to around lunchtime on our morning landing, and then we'll come back. We'll have lunch. We will relocate the ship from that location to another location, and then we'll be ready for our afternoon activity, which can include another landing, Zodiac exploration. It could be a flight, or it could be a combination of other water activities if you signed up for other water activities as well. So there isn't a rare occasion that if we were like, for example, I just got back from Greenland. I was in Hornsby Sun. There were no two places in Hornsby Sun where we landed. It was all completely different. We were going through the same, fjord system. We were landing in different fjords.
So let's talk about the Arctic for a second. So we explored. We explored Antarctica. Now let's talk about what's going on in the Arctic. Let me share the screen. There you go.
So really wide array of I guess miles that we cover in the Arctic. When you look at, go back one. Okay, perfect.
Sorry.
So with a lot of people will ask me, well, Carlos, I want to do either Arctic or Antarctic. Which one do you suggest? I got to tell you that 99% of the time, I basically push you towards the Antarctica, because if you're chasing your seventh continent, you're going to check that box off of, getting to the seventh continent, physically landing on the seventh continent. And I'm not talking sailing by. You land on the seventh continent. The wildlife in Antarctica is everywhere. It sits on your lap, literally and figuratively, it just sits on your lap. There's wildlife everywhere. So I can assure you that you're going to see a lot of wildlife in Antarctica. In the Arctic, you are going to see certain areas where you're going to see more wildlife than others. And then some areas where it's just this vast land of fjord systems. And sometimes the itinerary will be more focused around exploring fjord systems and ice sheets and things like that, versus seeing a lot of wildlife. So there's the wildlife is kind of spread out, but in the Arctic, we focus our travels around the Canadian High Arctic. We do Western, Southern, and Eastern Greenland, along with Iceland. Some of these itineraries might either start in Toronto, and then you'll fly to Resolute for the Canadian High Arctic. For some of the Greenland itineraries, you'll fly from Reykjavik and to Greenland, and then you'll start your itinerary there, or you'll sail straight from Iceland, from Reykjavik, and then you'll go and explore, for example, Western Greenland. And in Greenland, this year, we've increased our number of itineraries to Greenland in this area. The reason why we're doing that is because, the Svalbard archipelago, which is kind of like your starter trip, there in the middle, it's a group of islands, and within the Svalbard archipelago, Spitsbergen is the largest island, and that island, you're going to find more polar bears and people living on that island. So this place has become kind of like the Alaska of the Arctic, because everybody's going into Spitsbergen. And what we have done is we have diversified a little bit, and we've included a little more Greenland into the mix. There is more interest in the helicopter activities that we have, like in Southern Greenland, as well as with Western Greenland. It's the best place for viewing the Aurora Borealis or the Northern Lights. Later in the season, I'm talking, into September, almost getting to October. That's the best time for the auroras in Greenland. Best part about being in Greenland is that there are no city lights. There's very few very few settlements in Greenland. And in the area that we visit, what happens is that because there's no light pollution, you can literally dim the lights on the ship, and you have this spectacular view of the Northern Lights during the season, like no other place in the world. I know there's a lot of folks that will travel to Northern Canada, or maybe travel to parts of Alaska, but I got to assure you that certainly Greenland is the best place for viewing the Northern Lights. Over on the far right, Quark was the first company to take clients to the North Pole, as well as we have some interest in the Russian High Arctic. But because of the situation right now in Russia and in the Ukraine, we've suspended these right now for the immediate future. And so, there is no timetable on when these itineraries will come back. But, we are focusing, hopefully eventually down the line, to go back. But for now, it's just in the best interest to stay away from that area. I believe there's a question that popped up there, Carlos.
Sure. Bernard is asking, which of the ships sail to the western part of Greenland, and how do I see the deck plan?
Great question, Bernard. So we can share the links to the brochures, as well as we can share links to our actual collateral once we are done with our talk today. But we have a classic ship in the Arctic and a new ship, an Ultramarine, in the Arctic. So we operate two ships in the Arctic. One is Ocean Adventure, is more of a classic vessel. And then we operate Ultramarine, which is the newest and latest ship in the industry, twin Airbus helicopters. And then the same thing for Antarctica. In Antarctica, we operate two classic ships and two brand new ships down in Antarctica. So we operate a total of 4 down in Antarctica, and then 2 in the Arctic.
So Bernard, we'll follow up with you after the event, and I'll have one of our advisors reach out to you and provide you with detailed information about Greenland and the deck plans and suites and so forth. Okay. So Carlos, talk to us about the off-ship experience. Talk to us a little bit.
Fantastic. So, as I stated, the key for Quark is just to get you off the ship. At no given moment, do we want to keep you on the ship, with the exception of there are certain instances where we might find this fast moving ice at the beginning of the season, like in the Arctic, where we might just go up onto the ice and barely crack into the ice and keep the ship there. Because sometimes what will happen is that beginning of the season, the polar bears are out on the fast moving ice, that ice sheet in front of the fjord system or in a glacier. And what will happen is that a lot of times we can view the bears from the ship because we never want to encounter polar bears on land with people on land. That's worst case scenario. We never want to be that close to a polar bear. They're the apex predator. They do not discriminate. They'll eat just about anything. And so we've never had any instances with polar bear, thank God. But that safety feature there. So, but when it comes to getting off the ship, we certainly want to get you off the vessel and onto land. So what happens is that we have some complimentary adventure options or activities that are inclusive, and there are some that you can upgrade to another type of experience. So the far right here is our hiking groups. When we land in the Arctic or in Antarctica, specifically for the Arctic, we'll divide people into 4 different levels of activities. And I always say that we have activities for those of you that like to walk in the mall, to those of you that like, really intense climbing. So we have both ranges. So we set up our group into 4 different levels of activities. We have the slow, the medium fast, and then there's the fast group. The fast group is the chargers. They go the highest, the fastest. They go out the earliest and come back the latest. So depending on the level of activity that you want to experience, you can turn it up or turn it down at any given moment. On my first trip with Quark, I thought that I was in shape. I went out with the charging group. On the first day, I literally downgraded myself because it was hard to keep up, as well as there were certain areas where some of the guys were really going at a fast pace. The reason I kept up is because I had people that were much older than me that were outdoing me, and I finished it. But certainly, you can turn it up or turn it down. For those of you that think expeditions are really tough or it can be rough in it, I tell everyone that if you can sit on the edge of a bathtub and swing your feet over the edge of your bathtub, you're going to be able to get in and out of the Zodiac. That's probably the most difficult portion of getting off the ship, getting on the Zodiac, and getting off the Zodiac. It's just that activity is getting off the Zodiac. So you'll swing your feet over the edge of the Zodiac. You're going to have our guides and leaders there helping you out. For those of you that like hiking with walking sticks, the walking sticks are provided for you. We also, while we're talking about gear, we have the proper boots that we give you on a loaner basis that we can provide, and we can talk a little bit about some of the attire at the end here. Another complimentary activity that is a must do is the polar plunge. So once it's sailing, we will choose a place where it's a picturesque place, and we'll make an announcement that those of you that want to experience a polar plunge, come down, wear whatever you want to wear, as long as you're wearing something, and then you can make the polar plunge. You have activities on Ultramarine that are inclusive, like helicopters, and as well as the Zodiac exploration is very important, because the Zodiacs almost serve like the Jeep in a safari. The Zodiacs are like basically the workhorses of this safari at sea. So the Zodiacs will take you around, and in certain cases, Zodiac exploration provide vantage points of maybe polar bears on land, or they provide vantage points of like glaciers, as you see in here in the picture, or sometimes we have these bird cliffs where we can't get there by foot. We will use the Zodiacs to get close to the bird cliffs. Next slide.
Yeah, 1 second. And the helicopter, the helicopter is not included, is it?
Yes, it is. On Ultramarine, wherever we operate our helicopters, you will get at least a heli tour, about a 12-minute heli tour. These are, for those of you that know helicopter, these are Airbus H145s. They're twin engine, They can hold up to 9 people. Right now, we operate them with 6 in the back and then 2 in the front with the pilot. Well, the pilot and a person, one lucky person gets to fly in the co-pilot seat. And like everything else, there are adventure options that we can that are complementary, and there are some that you can upgrade if you would like the helicopter activities. Then certainly you can upgrade to a more exclusive helicopter type of activity, whether it's things like heli mountain biking in Greenland or heli hike. Actually, heli hiking is included in Greenland, or like heli alpine kayaking. Or, and for example, for the Antarctica, there are private heli landings that we do on these ice sheets that are exclusive to a small group of people that we take out. Here, in this particular picture, in Antarctica, we also offer both paddling and kayaking. Both of these water activities are there is a charge for them. One is for those of you that really like kayaking. And when we host this activity, we'll host it as many times as we can get the kayaks in the water. You will get to get on the kayaks, where the paddling excursion on the bottom left, it'll happen once a sailing. So if you want to try it out, maybe for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, you can get on this paddling excursion just to kind of get a look and feel. And then we also offer stand-up paddleboarding in Antarctica as well.
Hey, Carlos?
Yes.
I guess the top right photo of the 3 ladies sitting down, observed that they're all sort of, the jackets are open, and the guy with the camera, the jacket is open, and the woman in the canoe. What's the best time for temperature to go there? Because although there's snow all around them, it seems like it's not that cold because they're not buttoned up and all that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I get that all the time as far as the weather questions. So for Antarctica, we're going down during the austral summer, and that's when Antarctica is the warmest. And then when we're going towards the Arctic, we're going during our summer. I would say that the weather can range from like 30 degrees, and we've had days where we've gone up to like 60 degrees. But when you're active and you're walking, you're excited, you're in layers, sometimes it can get really hot. So if you see some of the pictures that I've had from my trips, I've had trips where I've had to basically take the parka off. That's, and we include that parka for you. It's complimentary and it's a keeper. I've had places where I've had to take the parka off. In the case of when I went mountain biking, I had to basically strip my pants down and get into shorts because it was just that warm and my body temperature is warm. So it all depends on your body temperature. There are days that it might be snowy and rainy and foggy, and where it might be colder, but that's the key of having the layers, is that you can turn them, you can, take layers off. You can't, if you didn't bring enough layers, you can't put them on them, so a lot of folks will dress in layers so that as it gets warmer, then you can strip down or snuggle up in your layers. Good question. Here in this picture, we have the some of the adventure options like the heli hiking, and then the heli the heli climbing as well. So both of these here in Antarctica are extra. And what we do is that we set up these little flags, and we set up a perimeter where we can hike. And normally they're guided hikes to the area. We normally will do a recon trip with a helicopter, and we'll find the perfect place to land, make sure that everything looks safe. Make sure there's no, for example, in the Arctic, like when we land on the Greenland ice sheet, we want to make sure that there are no moulins, no loose ice, no clear ice that might break. So we have to go through our kind of like a recon really early in the morning. And then in places like Antarctica, where we have a lot of hills, there could be crevasses that can pop up. So we certainly know these areas, but we take precaution in making sure that we land in the right place. And then in the Greenland program, we also include the Greenland ice sheet experience, where we flew all of our guests to the Greenland ice sheet. The Greenland ice sheet is the second largest of the ice sheets in the world, Antarctica being the largest. And we also offered heli hiking that was complimentary in the Greenland trip. So the Greenland adventure program that was our first inaugural trip happened this year when I went in July. That's more helicopter heavy. So if you're looking for more adventure and more flight seeing, that Greenland adventure program in southern Greenland is probably the trip for you. Where in other itineraries, will have a mix of, both helicopter activities and some activities that will be charged at an extra fee. And then in some, we will include a lot of helicopter activities. So on this Greenland trip, as an example, I did 5 total helicopter activities. 3 were complimentary for all guests. As you can see on the slide, these are all the included activities: Zodiac cruising, the polar plunge. We have photography groups and hiking groups that we take you out in that are all escorted, as well as some flight scene, heli hiking, and the ice sheet experience on some of the itineraries in Greenland. Some of the paid options can include camping, stand-up paddleboarding, paddling, and then kayaking. And then only on Ultramarine will you get extra options like in Antarctica, where we will offer the exclusive heli landing, or in the place like Greenland, like I stated, we have the heli mountain biking or the camping experience, where we have this curated camp by the Inuits that we fly our folks over to this camp. We land you at the camp and you spend the night there at the camp, and everything. You forage for your food, you fish for your food, and then at night you have a really neat dinner and a neat experience with the area with some locals that we've employed, that we've been working with for many years. One thing with the helicopters on Ultramarine, I honestly thought that it was just going to be a means of getting us from one place to the other, as far as like just a short distance. These helicopters were used heavily. We were flying for 12 minutes at a time. It wasn't a 2-minute jump where we got off the ship and then we landed on the other side of the bay. We were flying above mountains in many cases, in between ridges that were really close to the helicopter, obviously very safe conditions. But certainly the helicopters were, the highlight of my particular trip. So they're really used. They're not a gimmick.
And they can be operated both in Arctic and Antarctica?
So in the Arctic, with the places that we can operate is in the Canadian high Arctic, in Greenland, but we cannot operate them in Spitsbergen, because in Spitsbergen, there are strict laws around the polar bears being scared of helicopters, specifically when you're landing, as well as in the time of the season that we're visiting, there are a lot of mating going on with a lot of birds there, whether it's like the guillemots or the little auks are normally in mating season during that time. So that obviously would impact the wildlife there. Where in Antarctica, we do offer the heli experiences as well, more of a vast land, and there's a lot of places that we can operate, the helicopters in Antarctica.
Okay.
Ultramarine.
So question for you, Carlos. Have you ever done the polar plunge yourself?
I've done the polar plunge myself. There's actually, I believe there's a picture of me doing the polar
What?
plunge after the activities.
What?
And so this was my last one. I mean, the water looks beautiful. It looks warm, but honestly speaking, you can never get prepared for it. As much as I thought that I was going to be able to swim out to the safety Zodiac, as soon as you hit the water, something, my Miami blood, my Puerto Rican blood tells me just swim back to the ladder and get back on. But honestly, it's a neat experience. If you have a hard time swimming long distances, you have that safety cord around you. One of my coworkers did it without knowing how to swim. He basically just doggy paddled, and we were able to just pull him out of the water. There are some people that will swim all the way out to the safety Zodiac as far as a rope takes them, where some people just will hit the water and come back in. The only suggestion I might have for you is close your mouth as soon as you hit the water, because as soon as you hit the water, your body just wants you to scream. And so you end up drinking some of that, salty water. But it's an incredible experience. In most cases on Quark, we do it from a platform on the ship, so you can kind of get the full experience of the surroundings. And then over to my right hand, the left side of the screen, there's also a photographer there that's taking pictures of everybody that's jumping into the water. I chose to wear a chest strap with a GoPro, and so it's nice to have the video afterwards. So that's just something that I did personally. But the best thing about Quark is that all these pictures that are being taken around the ship by our photographer, and all of the maps that are being shared with you, all of the weather patterns, all the animals we saw, the animal charts that we checked off, all of this information is put into a share system in the ship, where every day people are sharing their best photos, and there's kind of like contests and bragging rights on photos. All of these photos are all put into one drive, And then about 4 weeks after your voyage, you get a complimentary link to a Dropbox. And basically you get all of this photography that was taken by both our photographers, by other photographers on the ship that share their photos in the share drive. And it's complimentary. There's no extra charge for this.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the fleet. What are we looking at here?
So here is basically just a schematic of all of our ships that we have in our fleet. So our newest ship is Ultramarine. This is actually, I'll brag a little bit. This is one of my photos from the helicopter that I took of Ultramarine in Greenland. And as you can see there, we have two twin helicopters, twin heli decks on board. On this particular vessel, we also have all of the Zodiac operations on the water level. So when it comes to operating the Zodiacs, we have about 4 entry points that we can operate Zodiacs. And so we have 20 rapid deploying Zodiacs that we can deploy immediately if we see wildlife or we see something interesting, where traditional ships, including some of the other ships that we operate, you have to crane them down and then get them into the water slowly. It takes a little longer. Here, basically, it's about a 5-foot drop from the ship, and basically the Zodiacs are in the water, pretty rapidly. This particular ship is basically a culmination of 30 years of Quark's experience that's been put into this particular ship. It took us about 5 years to build. We were one of the few companies that took delivery of a brand new ship during the pandemic, and so we were able to launch the ship successfully during our Antarctic season, and very proud of the ship. It's state of the art. It has all of the bells and whistles, all of the top accommodations you can find. Certainly the helicopters are the key feature for this ship, but certainly the ship as a whole is just an incredible platform. Excuse me. It's an incredible platform for the polar regions.
This is the interior spaces. So we have a restaurant.
All of the feature comforts, nicer accommodations, state-of-the-art TV systems, and state-of-the-art spas and gymnasiums, and we have a sauna. We have a open deck. You can walk around completely. It's great viewing, and so in every area, every dining area, for example, if we see some type of wildlife, if you're in the middle of dinner, you can just walk out, and there's a viewing platform right outside of the dining rooms. So it's a really neat ship. The presentation areas are incredible, where the technology, if you want to view the presentation from your room, will stream it to your room if you want it. So if you're looking for top-notch accommodations with a state-of-the-art ship, the newest in the industry, with the only ship in the industry that has twin helicopters, this would be the ship that you would choose. Now, we also have the World Explorer, which is a brand new ship as well. That ship launched in 2019. This is an all-suite ship as well. Doesn't feature the helicopters, but certainly more upgraded accommodations as well. Different levels of suites on this vessel, as well as balconies. Great viewing areas. Again, state-of-the-art gymnasium facilities. This ship is a little smaller than Ultramarine. It's about 172 passengers. And then it also it serves as one of the ships that we use for the fly cruise program. And so when we want to operate World Explorer for the fly cruise programs, we operate at 140 passengers, because that's the max that we can have on the airplanes. So for the fly cruise program, we have a brand new ship in World Explorer, and then we have a classic ship that we operate as well, which is the next slide, the next ship that we have in the slides. And that's more of a classic vessel. This is the first trip ship that I took with Quark. It's the Ocean Adventurer. It's more of a classic entry-level type vessel. Very comfortable vessel for the itineraries that we're visiting. This ship is 128 passengers, so it's a little more quaint, and it's about 87 staff members on board. So with Quark, it's almost a 1-to-1 guest to staff ratio, but really what's important to us is basically the fact that we have one guide or leader for every 7 guests. The other thing that I wanted to mention, most of our guides and leaders, if I didn't mention, most of our guides and leaders have over 200 expeditions under their belt. So, you're going with some of the top experts, when it comes to these regions here. And then the last ship, the most entry-level ship, is Ocean Diamond. It's about 199 guests. This ship, if you travel single, This is a ship that you can travel as a single guest in a single room. We also have single share programs that if you're interested in sailing with somebody that's your same sex and more or less the same age level, we'll do a pairing program as well. And so this ship is more of a classic vessel, more of an entry price points that you can see in the industry. And so again, we have a price point, an itinerary, and a style of vessel for all types of guests. I always say that find the itinerary that you really like, because Quarks, stays in the season a little longer. We will probably have 7 to 8 of the same itineraries throughout different parts of the season, where other companies will have maybe only 4 or 5 options during the season. With Quark, you're going to have, for every type of itinerary, you're going to have a classic vessel and a brand new vessel. So that's the reason we have 4 total ships that we operate in this area.
Amazing. And I also want to make sure we don't have a slide for this, but just wanted to remind all of you that for those that attended today, you're going to be eligible to receive a $200. It's $200 shipboard credit,
Yes.
onboard credit on your next Quark Expeditions adventure when booked, obviously through Luxury Cruise Connections. And here at Luxury Cruise Connections, we've had a relationship with Quark for quite a long time, many, many years. Carlos has taken really good care of us and every single one of our guests. And within the Luxury Cruise Connections team, we have quite a bit of our team are expedition experts, which means that you can ask basically any question just as much as I asked Carlos during today's event, and they'll be able to give you a solid answer. Now, if it's something that we don't know, or if there's any magic that we need to work for you, then that's where this relationship comes about. Quark Expeditions has been doing business for a long time with amazing, amazing reviews, clients that we've sent on Quark Expedition ships, Quark Expedition Adventures. They come back raving about the experience. It is definitely an experience designed around wowing people and wowing guests on the adventure factor of the entire experience. So we support Quark Expeditions. We've done it for a long time because of it. We like it when our clients come back and rave about the experience. And now that they have these 2 ships, the World Explorer and the Ultramarine, they kind of appeal a little bit more to what how most of our guests like to travel, which is you get that adventure part of the experience, but you get to come back to a ship that has luxurious accommodations and amazing service. So we highly recommend for those that are looking for a true polar adventure to look into taking advantage of one of these itineraries. I want to open it up for questions from you guys. What do you want to know? What did we miss during our presentation that you feel is important for you? This is when I'd like to kind of find out a little bit more about what else you guys want to learn throughout today's event. I see Paul, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. I see Brian also, Bernard. Brian, what question would you have for us today? How did you like the presentation?
Oh, it was very informative. I haven't done a expedition cruising. It's just something I want to learn more about, so I can. What's that?
Is it in your bucket list?
Oh, definitely. It's only 2 things keeping me from it: time and money. Just working on taking care of those so I can.
There you go. Well, definitely need a little bit of time to do this and to do it right. And then the money, well, we'll work around that. We'll get you something that works out. We can work our magic.
Here you go.
Yeah, Brian, just let me know when you want to go, and we'll research for the best possibilities for you.
Definitely will, Steve.
Okay.
And who in our event today has been on an expedition? I know that almost half of you guys said you had been on an expedition adventure or an expedition cruise. Sandy, let me look for you, Sandy. I wanna 1 second. Talk to us, Sandy.
I've been to the Galapagos, so completely different kind of one, but yeah.
And how do you how do you feel about the Antarctica or the Arctic, one of the poles? How do you feel about it?
It's on my bucket list, as well as I'm going at Christmas time to Chile, Uruguay, and I'm going in that area already, so I'm kind of scoping it out.
Okay, that's and I sense a Canadian accent over there.
Yes.
You're short on time, you can fly to Antarctica.
Yeah, if you can squeeze another 8 days in, we might be able to get you down there, but
No,
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to be right there. I'm going to exactly those ports, so yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll make sure we help you find.
And Carlos,
something.
like Sandy, we have a lot of guests that that tend not to cruise a lot, but they do take it typical cruising. I would say that this is the farthest from your traditional cruising as you can get. This is probably closer to a safari than anything else. And we get a lot of folks, for those of you that maybe never cruise, we do get a lot of first-time cruisers that are opting for this style of travel because it doesn't behave like your traditional cruises where everybody's just following each other. So it's good for first-timers, but certainly if you travel to places like the Galapagos or on African safaris, you are certainly ready for this type of trip.
Good point. Has anybody attending today's presentation, have any of you guys been on board Quark expedition ships? Maybe not.
I gotta call out Xavier because I know Xavier.
Javi has. Javi was in Greenland, right?
So yeah, Carlos was very nice to invite us to check out the Ultramarine in not Greenland. It was in Svalbard, which would be Norway. Amazing. I think it's probably one of the best expedition ships out there right now. So we did it polar plunge a little bit differently. We did it from one of the platforms that you have, right? The platform for the sodium channel, and just amazing ship. It was very good. The expedition team, I'd say very young, but there were also like a few more, like a little more seasoned, also expedition team members. But overall, the level of activity that we had on that expedition, we did the expedition in brief, and on at least 2 of the hikes, we tried one of the regular ones, right? I think Carlos mentioned there's different level of activities. So the regular one, that was okay. It's still kind of hard when you're like walking in the boots with the park, and so I do suggest bring those the poles, right? The trekking poles, but then what amazed me was when we tried out the very hard one, because that's where you can really tell we literally went all this way up this hill in this part of Svalbard, in this island called New London, and that was about I want to say about 3-hour hike, and we went all the way up through hill, and there was a few people, actually 2 ladies under 70s, which were having a much better time than I was. But the level of activity required for those activities was like very hard. Like later we were talking with some of the other people who joined on that, and that was like very amazing. Also, like the camping and the other things that Quark have, I think really makes it perhaps the most adventurous expedition line. So yeah, amazing.
Cool. And like Carlos was saying, I mean, you can be very fit and take advantage of those harder activities, but you can also, I mean, you can really take it as far as you want. Like if you're not that active, and it doesn't mean you can't visit this place. You're going to take a little slower than everybody else, and there's opportunity for that too.
Well, I'll tell you this: there were a few people on the ship that were not, the most physically fit, but overall the expedition team were great. Like a few options to just go and walk on the ice, You saw the ice. That was pretty cool. You can just go around, get out the Zodiac. It's as easy as, being able to sit and turn. So,
Cool. And I want to hear from Dr. Keller. Dr. Keller, what do you think about of today's presentation? You gotta unmute.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Okay. I came back from a safari this year and I enjoyed that immensely. I'm looking forward to taking something to Antarctica. I've been to Greenland and Iceland. That was interesting, but I don't think it's anywhere near what Antarctica seems to be.
Yeah, very, very different experience. Do you have any questions that maybe you want to ask Carlos, or we covered a pretty good ground?
We covered most of it.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Okay.
Carlos, can I add something that to what I heard Brian say earlier?
Of course.
Yes.
I'll be right. Hold on. Let me.
So I imagine everybody that attended this thing probably wants to go to one of these destinations, but I mean, I heard Brian mention that the things that are holding them back are price and time. There is no reality where you're going to have a low-priced expedition cruise to Antarctica. It's always going to be a premium item. So when you look at these things, you have to look at them, the word bucket list comes up a lot. You have to look at products like Quark as a value against their competition.
They had me on.
With all the people out there that are now in the expedition market, look at everything that you're getting with Quark. Main things people look for is a brand new ship. Quark has 2 of them. The biggest features on a lot of these ships that a lot of the biggest, newest guys are doing are helicopters. Quark has 2 of them. Quark has the most experienced expedition team in the industry. Quark also has competitively lower pricing than other options out there. So you're getting all of that wrapped up, and this is a bucket list experience. So when you're talking about bucket list, you're talking about something you want to get done before it's all said and done, right?
It's a good way to
What
put
are you
it.
going to remember more? How much money you spent, or the fact that you went down to Antarctica and did something that 99% of travelers are never going to do in their life? You're going to get your 7th continent in. Once you're done with that, you're going to get hooked. You're going to want to go see Iceland and Greenland and all of the Canadian Arctic and all those other things. So, guys, I know there's sticker shock, but there's sticker shock because, I mean, if I sat here and told you I was going to send you to Antarctica for $1,000 a person, what would you really expect? Because, I mean, these are places that until probably the last 50 years, you were risking your life to go there. So now you can go there in abject luxury for a relatively competitive price with Quark. So, take those into consideration when you're planning this, because this isn't something, it's not like a weekend trip. It's nothing like that. This is something that is going to be a
And
life-changing
to add on,
experience.
the weather changes, the landscape and the weather changes are real. Some of these areas are melting at a fast rate, landscapes are changing. And so not that, there's fear mongering or, we're not going to get into this whole debate on global warming, but these areas are changing. And before they change further, it's good to just take advantage of going to see these places and learn a little bit more while these areas are completely untouched. And I think that these are one of the best areas, like the Galapagos, one of the areas that are kept pristine, where everywhere else it's just you're getting a saturation of travelers coming in, where this is one of the very few areas that are still managed by 2 organizations, IATO and IACO, that limit the number of ships that can go to these places and the number of people that can land and impact some of these areas. So what we like is, just leaving footsteps behind and then, basically leaving everything as we found it.
And just to add to what Albie said, this is a type of trip that your friends and family are going to be envious that you took, and that once they see your photos that you have.
And there is definitely a sense of urgency. As Carlos just said, a lot of these locations, they're changing, but they change based on geological time. So humans work on human time. Antarctica works on epochs and ages. So, you know, what it is now is not going to be what it is in 100 years. But you also have to factor in, look at everything that's happened within the last 3 years. You know, the longer you put these things off, who's to say that there's not going to be some other global event that keeps you from going? You know, we just all finished a pandemic where we weren't allowed to do anything, go anywhere for nearly 2 years. So now there's a war in Europe and we can't go to Russia. I mean, these destinations come on and off of the menu with world events. So, I mean, if there's something holding you back that you can overcome, even if it, you know, I don't want to say overextends you, but if you have to make some sort of sacrifice to do it, I suggest that you do it if it's really that important to you, because there's a lot of things that a lot of people are never going to get to do now. You know, some people's windows closed on a lot of things during this last couple years. So guys, you have to consider this as something that you do for yourself. You know, this is every bit is valuable to you as buying a new car, except you're going to remember this way longer than you remember the new car. So I can't stress enough how enriching the experience is, how exclusive the experience is. Some people go without even having a reason to go, but you have to consider that when you're even considering this, you are in the top 99th percentile of tourists, travelers, explorers, whatever you want to call it. You know, you could still count a relatively low number of people that have actually been there, and that list gets even smaller, people that have been there to spend the night. So yeah, you really should consider all these things when you're factoring it in. Weigh the value rather than the actual financial cost, because this is something that you're doing for yourself, for your family, for the lifetime.
For those that don't know, I'll be just one second. I'll be is, if you guys have been reading our emails and our newsletters and our blogs, Albie's behind most of those articles that you're getting through our emails. So thank you, Albie, for that great insight.
Yeah. Carlos, I wanted to add really quick on why go on an expedition with Quark. It's one of the things I experienced firsthand, and one of the things that got me worried was that we tried the expedition in brief itinerary, right? So this is a 6-day round trip long European, right? So Quark flies you to the Arctic, to Spitsbergen, and Carlos already explained that, and did a short navigation around Spitsbergen. And one of the things that worries most people if you go for a short time in the Arctic is what's the likeliness of seeing a polar bear or spotting a polar bear, right? They're not the easiest to find, and pretty much you're depending on them going close to the water in the ice to be able to spot them. One thing that was amazing about Quark expeditions was that on those 4 days navigation, because you actually have 4 days navigating around Spitsbergen, they were able to spot 9 polar bears on that expedition, which is amazing. I worked with an expedition cruise line before, and many times I've heard of people going on 7-10 night itineraries to the polar regions and getting off the ship very frustrated because they didn't spot one single polar bear while they were in the Arctic. And I'm amazed that we were able to see 9 in only 4 days. And I only got to see 7, by the way. I don't know where they spotted the other 2. I missed them. Literally, they called us, the first ones we saw, they called us up at 11:30 at night, which is still bright as daylight. But of course, they had to call us out if there's a polar bear. And it was pretty amazing. So that level of expertise, like having someone out on deck 24 hours, literally, because there's 24 hours a day, like having someone out on deck the whole time, looking at land where everything's white, looking for a little white ball moving. It's pretty damn hard to see. And especially when they get you the telescopes, even when the ship's moving and the polar bear's moving and you're able to spot it with the telescope from the ship, if you move just a little bit, because it's cold, you shook, whatever, you lost it. And then the expedition guides are right there. They take it for a few seconds and boom, they spot the polar bear again and they get back to it. So you can even take pictures and everything.
Thank you, Javi. Javi is also one of our expedition experts here at Luxury Cruise Connections, and he is one of the few people in the world that I've heard that actually can pronounce most of the names in the northern northern pole. Right? Thank you. Thank you. And we have within the team at Luxury Cruise Connections, basically anybody you have an opportunity to deal with at our company is extremely knowledgeable and well versed on how to plan and how to create the best experience out of one of those Quark expedition adventures. I guess I want to be also very respectful of everybody's time, and I know Carlos is a very busy guy, having to take care of a lot of people that want to go on Quark. But I want to remind everybody that we're here for you, and that we're here to make this adventure and planning this adventure a very seamless experience. At Luxury Cruise Connections, many of you know, we specialize in luxury cruising, classic, expedition, river cruising, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're basically experts at making people happy while planning their vacations and making these adventures a reality. We are extremely proud to be one of Quark's top accounts here in Florida, and we strive and do what we can do because of this relationship and the support that we get from Carlos and his team. If anybody has any additional questions or anything else pops up after this event and you're curious, you want to know, shoot us an email, reply back to the invitation. We'll get that email. Call us at any time. Let us know you're interested. We'll be happy to answer those questions and help you plan this trip as soon as you're ready. Remember this offer for the $200 additional shipper credit, which you can use on any of this, I guess one of the helicopter paid adventures, or for example, or a kayaking tour or whatever. You can use that on that this $200 are going to be, it's just a little incentive, a little thank you for an appreciation for joining us today. That's going to be available for the next 2 weeks, for any booking made in the next 2 weeks. So if you're interested, let us know. We'll be happy to guide you through it and help you plan it. I guess that's it for today. Carlos, any last words before you go?
I can't stress the fact that you all really know your business. I mean, you guys are experts in luxury cruising. I mean, the name speaks it says it all. Some of you I've known for over 20 years, and so the experience you have at your call center is second to none. So I agree totally with you. If they can't find the answer to any questions, they're certainly going to find one of our experts here at Quark that can answer for you. And so, reach out to Carlos and the team, and we'll get you on the right expedition.
Hey, Carlos, I might be calling you. I called yesterday. I have a single guest, so I have to talk to you about that.
Yeah, my number, buddy. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you very, very much for attending today's event. I really appreciate you following us and being with us today. Like I said, we'll look forward to planning your next adventure. And in the meantime, I just want to wish everybody a amazing afternoon, evening, or wherever you are in the world, rest of the day. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care, Carlos.
Bye-bye. Take care. Nice seeing you. Bye-bye.